attempted coup, unfortunately, at 96 by our neighbors. And then the United States came and stood by us at that time. And we had a first military presence at that time, in 96, from the United States, which prevents any clash with our neighbors, which we suppose all to be the allies of the United States. This is where the relation started between us and the United States in the military perspective. So in 2002, when the United States decided to leave, the neighbor countries because, they couldn't take the heat, Qatar did not forget the 96, stand of the United States and we say that we welcome the United States to be in Qatar, and this is regardless of what the region thinks about the presence of the American. We open our arms and hearts to our colleagues and friends because we never forget what they did to us in the previous days. Yes, it was one runway at that time when you came, and you have to hold for more than half an hour to find your time to land. Today we have 2 runways in Al-Udeid, and the expansion is tremendous. Al-Udeid is totally changed, is a full city now. And we didn't stop there. We are planning to expand Al-Udeid. Al-Udeid will become very soon a family-oriented place for our fellow American who lives there. We are planning for a 2040 vision in a military-to-military cooperation with the United States in all aspects, whether it's in the Air Force, Navy, or the Land Force. We are improving our 2 newly ports so we can host our colleagues in the Navy. And the other things which we are doing in Al-Udeid, which I can talk to you about in specific and details while we are discussing this morning.
Well, fabulous, sir. The access that you talked about was really remarkable from my perspective. I had 95 aircraft under my command there. And when we went to Afghanistan, we had to fly through Pakistan, and very often there would be a stop sign going through that where we had to wait and hold and sometimes return back to Al-Udeid. But the phenomenal relationship that we have had with your nation meant that there was never an issue with that. Unrestricted takeoff times, unrestricted landing times, unrestricted operations, and that was something that we grew to rely on, and I think we rely on still. Grateful for that. When I was there, it was an unaccompanied tour. There was no facilities for a spouse or children. And I just heard you allude to that in the sense that the permanent facilities that are there now are going to be expanded. Could you talk to me about how that's going to expand in order to accommodate families being at Al-Udeid?
We find out that our colleagues are obliged to live outside the Al-Udeid, so they choose the city of Daha, which is too far. And they don't feel comfortable being away from the base. So a couple of days before I come here this morning, I met with your corps of engineers in Al-Udeid, and we decided that the best way is to start immediately building a compound where the family can stay and where they can have their own school. And, as we speak today, they do have the American school, which they are enrolling their children. But we want more of the families to be, stable.
Yes, sir.
And feel more comfortable in their staying. So this is what we decided to do. We decided to start immediately of building 200 units for the officers and officers' family, and we are going also to increase the dorms, to shift some of them from the old-fashioned dorms, if you still remember, to new ones now, and all the facilities needed for that, to make it comfortably livable.
Fabulous. The city of Doha is half an hour to 40 minutes away, depending on how fast you drive, and we used to drive pretty quick going back and forth. It was the security thing of the American security coming on base that was the screen that basically made that into an hour and a half process. So having them on the compound there will be a great add. And having that access to that incredible city and harbor will be another great thing for the families that get to go there.
But it's not anymore half an hour now. With all the new motorways being opened, this is why I urge you to come and visit us again. It's been a long time. No, there is motorways with 8 lines each side, so it will take you 7 minutes now, maybe, if you have a Porsche.
Well, I'll do my best to get over there and see it again in the near term. That would be a fabulous sight. So as far as the military goes, Qatari military, you have made some big purchases in the last several years, one of which is the C-17. That airplane has great capabilities, and Qatar accepted the last of them in 2015, last of 8. And so those are bedded down. Your crews have had time to get familiar and acquainted and operationally ready. Could you give us an idea of how you're using those aircraft, how you've used them in the past, and what you see in the future for employment?
I'll be very honest with you. Maybe the time when we decided to buy the C-17, we had a different perspective of what we're having now. At that time, we thought that, we are a member of the coalition. We are a member of our close coalition, the GCC, and our friend and ally with the United States. So we thought that it will help to depend on sometime on ourselves and help our friends by our own means, and not always being dependent on the United States asset. Every time we have an issue, we have to call 911. So we said, let's do the job ourselves and help our. But I find out after the 5th of June, I don't know if you're aware of this date, 5th of June for Qatar is the date of where we've been ambushed by our neighbors and blockaded. And, out of the blue, we lost our only, border with the Saudis, and we find out ourselves without any access on the air. So the C-17s really rescued us. We had to initiate an air bridge from Doha to Kuwait to Turkey to Morocco to Oman to bring all the necessary foods and medicine until we figure out how we are going to get all these flows in, because it was a total embargo. And then I realized how wise our leader was when they decided to go and buy this strategic airlift. So thank you for Boeing. I don't know if Boeing is here, but I have to thank Boeing for it.
Sir, talk to me about the operational side of that. I completely get the domestic resupply capability that it is delivered for your country. Talk to me about the military aspects of the employment of that aircraft.
Yeah. We reached out to our colleagues in Qatar, the military attaché, and we asked them that we really need to be involved in the operation itself. And this needs a lot of training, train our crew, how to enter operation and hostile areas and so on. And we did this. Secretary Mattis have helped us a lot on this. And then we started our operation. As we speak today, we have millions of pounds being shifted with our colleagues, the American. We just recently did our tours to Afghanistan too. So it's, as we speak now, our C-17 is heavily engaged with the American in the counterterrorism campaign. And it's doing very, very well.
Sir, have they flown on the air tasking orders, the ATO? Have they been incorporated in that?
Yes, of course.
That is a huge step. And to be able to rely on them in that capacity, it's a huge airlift capability.
Absolutely.
And we all need it.
Absolutely. And back to the American equipment, I would like to touch on this so we don't. It's not only the C-17 actually. 20 years ago, we've been, a Europe-oriented military country. So all our equipment was, from Europe mostly. Today, most of our backbone system are from the United States. For example, we had the C-17, as you mentioned. We managed to get approval, and now it is under process, the early warning radar, which is one of the things which we will heavily depend on to have a good eyes. We bought the Apache from the United States. We bought the F-15, the Patriot, and also some other land force equipment. And this needs a lot of training and doctrinally changing. This is why we are, and also the jobs, not to mention the job has been created by this system. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of jobs if we bring all the systems together being created on that. And we are happy. At least we feel that we are, giving something to our allies and friends in the United States. But this needs a lot of training and a lot of engagement. And this is what we are trying now to accomplish together with our colleagues here.
Well, fabulous. So 24 Apaches, and you bought those about 3 to 4 years ago, and now you're on the...
With an option to increase, huh?
Yes, sir. And you're also talking about going from about 18 fighters to almost 100 between the F-15E, the Typhoon, and the Raphael. That's going to be a lot of pilots, a lot of aircrew members, a lot of maintenance technicians that are all highly skilled, and it takes a while to develop that from the NCO Corps on up. So in the near term, how do you plan on filling that manpower requirement?
One Qatari is worth of 100. Let me tell you this. They have to. They have no choice. They have no other choice. But no, we have good programs. We are dealing hand in hand with the entities or our counterpart from the United States, namely our military attaché in Qatar, to make this program, training program, smooth. We have our own air academy in Qatar, and they are graduating good numbers. We just graduated 35 pilots day before yesterday. Last year we graduated 30. Next year we estimate to graduate 60. So we have good outcome from our air academy, and I think when the systems arrive, we will have enough numbers to operate them, and they will all be Qataris.
That's an amazing feat, because the acquisition is going to happen so fast, and then the manpower to come in and fly it, that takes a while to develop. So good on you for making those steps right up front. Now, sir, we've talked about tangible aspects. We've talked about the equipment and the things that everybody can see. But let's take a minute or two to talk about the intangibles, the things that are harder for many folks to understand. I think it's probably evident to most people in the room how important Al-Udeid is to the United States. CENTCOM Forward is there. Our CAOC, Combined Air Operations Center, is there, as well as airlift, ISR assets, tanker assets, and fighters on occasion. So it's very important, and our relationship to Qatar is very important. Would you take a minute to tell the audience what the relationship means to the Qatari people?
First of all, let me tell you the importance of Al-Udeid on that region. Qatar is a strategical place to be. If you can picture the geography of the region, where Afghanistan is, or where Iraq is, or Syria, or the other important and hot spots in the region. Secondly, I'm not exaggerating if I say that 80% of the air-to-air refueling on the operation, the whole region, is done by Al-Udeid Air Base. Our fellow American who are in Qatar, they are the one who makes your birds keep flying.
Yes, sir.
I believe at least 80% of your birds. And how we see it in Qatar, it is very important that we keep this relation going. Qatari people are very welcomed people, and they are, open. They like the diversification. So the Americans in Qatar are very well received. And we are learning on the military side. We are learning a lot by flying side by side of your brave men and women in Qatar, because our people is gaining a lot of experience. It is an operational environment, a real operational environment. There is no place for mistake, so everybody is doing his utmost best to be up to the standard which we in Qatar at least want. And this is a great chance to have our colleagues with all their experience flying in Qatar with us. So this is how we see it. I won't touch the political aspect of it. I would like to keep it on the military to military and how we as a military look at it.
Fabulous, sir. I don't know how people in the audience view our relationship, but having been on the ground, one of the nicest Christmas Eves I've spent in my life was at a Starbucks in Doha. And the people were incredibly embracing of the moment, and the most beautiful Christmas music that you've ever heard was coming out of the loudspeakers, and there were only 4 Americans that were there in the...
The rest is Qataris.
Yes, sir. Exactly right. So incredible. And I actually have a Starbucks coffee cup that I carry around with me from that moment, and it's just a great memory. Just a little bit of a shift. The geostrategic platform and plateau and the things that we're experiencing in the world, they're shifting like titanic plates. You never know what's going to happen in 10 or 20 years, but let's take the ideal. In your mind, if everything went well in your position, where would your alliances be in the next 10 years? In the year 2028, where would your alliances be?
Well, to answer this question, I have to shift a little bit away from the military to military relation to draw the picture. Our strategic ally, no doubt, not because I am here, but it is the United States and Qatar. And when I say 2040 vision, because we have a plan for the 2040 vision in the military to military relation with the United States. But if we see the different aspects, it will give you how tight is the relation. Today in the energy sector, for example, which is our bread and butter, at least until now, until we reach our 2030 vision to diversify our income. 30% of our energy, our partner is America, which is ExxonMobil for this who does not know. And this is the #1 gas exporter field on the world, and our partner is the ExxonMobil. So ExxonMobil is with us forever. So it's not for the 10 years. It's for the 60, 70, 80 years. God knows when this will be depleted. Secondly, education. Most of our young Qatari who are attending here are graduated from American universities. And if you know that we have Qatar Foundation where they have the education city, and on that education city we have 5 campuses of the most prestigious university in the United States. For example, we have Northwestern, Carnegie Mellon, Georgetown, and Cornell University. So this prestigious university are in Qatar as a main campus, and not as under license. They are there, So if you see all this, you would draw a conclusion. How is the relation is tight with our colleagues in the United States? So we have, I think we have made our mind. So, you know, we should talk about 30, 40, 50 years beyond your 10 years.
Yes, sir. Fabulous. Well, just as a warning to you guys, I'm about running out of questions. So if you've got one of those index cards or you want one, please raise your hand. And if you've got those questions already done, make sure they get down to the aisle to where our proctor over here can hand them up to me in just a minute.
I can use this, yes?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So if I could turn that same question 10 years from now, that's when the fruits of your purchases for military hardware and the development of your personnel to man that hardware is going to be bearing fruit. What would the military, the Qatari military, be capable of doing operationally, and how do you see them being used in the region?
As I said when I started that, for the past 15 years, since the first Gulf War started, 20 years, I believe. Qatar was heavily dependent on you guys, heavily. So every time we have an issue, as I said, we pick up the phone, call 911 and say, you know, SOS, please. So this was not very pleasant. And one day your colleagues, no matter how close to you your ally, they will feel that you're a burden on their shoulder. So we decided that we need to improve our capability and then join our friend and ally as partners and participate and to defend our country and our region with them, rather than just enjoying, you know, enjoying the good life we have and leave this to your, you know, men and women who are fighting there. So this was a very wise decision by His Highness the Emir of Qatar, and this is when we started to build our capability. So this is one of the main reasons. The second main reason is, I think we find out that if you have muscles, it's a way of bringing stability and peace. You know, and if you are surrounded with a giant country, maybe sometime in the morning when they wake up, they don't mean to hurt you, but if they stretch, you know, they might kick you. So you have to be ready to, at least, you know, to be ready to protect yourself. So this is the second thing which makes us, you know, enhance our capability.
Wonderful. Well, do we have questions, Dakota? Thank you very much, sir. Okay, this question is from Al Jazeera TV, and it says the Memorandum of Understanding that was signed back in July, how is it helping your fight against terror and fighting terror?
Who's helping us? Sorry again. Oh, the what signed with the American? Yes. Well, first of all, let's see. This is the Memorandum of Understanding which we've been signed. This is the outcome of our meeting in Riyadh when President Trump visited Riyadh. And I can say it proudly, that's the only country who was serious to counter terrorism after that meeting is Qatar. We are the only one who took this forward, and we signed the MOU with the United States. We have a joint task teams from all the entities concerned, like the Treasury in the United States, Treasury in Qatar, the MOD from both sides, you know, State Department, and we have did a lot of progress on that. So I think we are in the right track. We have advanced a lot, and this is the thing that people does not realize, that today we are living in a place where it is not the conventional enemy we are fighting. It is the unconventional. And terrorists are attacking, They don't have a religion, they don't have time, you never know where they come from. So I think this is a strategical decision Qatar has made with the United States to sign and go ahead with that.
Sir, I've got a question here that's obviously biased, and I'm not sure I like it so far.
Not from Al Jazeera again, please.
No. I think this has a color of its own. I'll just say, you discussed Qatar-U.S. Cooperation with Air Force and how it's developing with the Navy. How do you see cooperation developing with the U.S. Army?
Oh. No, very well. In fact, we are working, you know that we have both the Patriots, and the Patriot is very much linked to the Army, and they are facilitating everything for us to get, to get our hand and to be trained there. At the same time, we do have at Asaliya camp the land force equipment and the support system. So relation is 360. It is a 360 degrees, but maybe always the land force they don't like to have the show. It's only us, the Air Force and the Navy, who would like to be always decorated.
And we are. I mean, let's
not
be
their
shy
boots,
about that.
Yes.
Yeah, steak night at Camp Asaliya was the best on Wednesday nights. I think it was. And the CENTCOM Forward has moved from Camp Asaliya onto Al Udeid. Do you know why that was done? Was it mostly connectivity and comms?
And better facilities too.
Better facilities.
We are going to expand these facilities too. As I told you, we have a big plan to expand Al Udeid, to make it, to make it permanent. Maybe our colleague and friend in the DOD here are reluctant to mention the word permanent, but we are working from our side to make it a permanent.
Fabulous. So this one I can't confirm the question, but I'll just go ahead and ask it. There have been reports recently that Qatar is planning to purchase the Russian S-400 surface-to-air missile system. Is this true? And if it is true, why?
Okay. First of all, the MOD of Qatar did not announce this, and we in the MOD usually look at all opportunity around us. You are a military man, and when you study a system, there is nothing about having a look to see what suits you, what suits your country. So I don't see any issue of us looking around and seeing other systems around. But that does not mean this is a substitute to our relation with the United States. And our relation, as you know, is in air defense. It's at its peak in Air Force, Land Force. So, but that does not mean we cannot go and look and just see what the world has.
Now, for those of you who are not familiar, the S-400 has some of the longest legs of any surface-to-air missile system in the world. It's Russian-made, and it is probably the most advanced that's been fielded of any of the services or any of the nation's surface-to-air missile systems. Now, I didn't hear you confirm or deny that you were going to do that, but I heard kind of a lean into that. Is that right? So it might be happening?
Well, we are reading about the S-400 and how scary it is. But, to be honest with you, the MOD did not announce, unless Nawaf announced something behind my back.
That would never happen here. No, sir. All right, so advanced technology. Do you anticipate a role for unmanned systems and other advanced technologies in Qatar's defense portfolio? Perhaps air and missile defense, area surveillance, or maritime operations? Unmanned systems is the question.
Yes. Well, we have in the MOD we have three roles now. one of them is the military technology and reaching out to colleagues who have good technology and try to partnership with them to get the best out of this technology. Unmanned, whether it is GUV or air manned, are the future, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Maybe if you ask me a direct question, I believe that the last manned airplane will be the F-35, in my opinion. Maybe post the 35 will be all unmanned. So this is, I think, the right time for us to reach out and look for this technology from now and try to do some partnership. So when it comes, we are at the edge.
Sir, is that an area for U.S. Qatari cooperation?
Yeah, for sure, but my investment man is here, defense investment, and he always doesn't like me to speak about these things in detail, but he have a lot in his portfolio in the United States.
All right, so we'll attack you later. All right, the global economy and security interests. As a leading energy exporter, you talked about this a little bit earlier, Qatar is in a position to observe regional and global economic trends. Do you see generally positive trends or dark clouds on the horizon? And what are the implications for Qatar's security interests?
This is a very important question, actually. And what's happening in the region on the past 7 months, I think it's not very pleasant for the security of smooth flow of energy. Keeping the GCC in a coherent status is very important for the safe and smooth flow of the energy. For example, our big neighbors are rich in oil. Qatar, I can say almost every lamp here, everywhere in the world, has 30% of Qatari gas on it. So imagine that you are supplying 30% of the world needs. And with people without a vision in the region, people who are, acting in a, I can say it comfortably, in a child, mood, are jeopardizing the region for one reason. Because other countries has bad tests on the past of manipulating oil price, trying to bring them to their knees. And these countries will not allow to tamper with oil and gas because they only have oil and gas. So when they feel that you are going to threat their gas, you are giving them a free ticket to come to the region. And this is very dangerous. So this is why we always try to encourage our colleagues here that I think enough is enough, and people who are acting, childishly should stop and bring this to an end.
Sir, this is a follow-up question to the S-400 question earlier. What is Qatar's motivation for pursuing a purchase of the S-400 system, if you are? And do you have any concern that it could trigger U.S. penalties?
I think our relation with the United States is much deeper than it will be affected if we buy, from here on there. We have a rooted historical, whether military to military or, education or energy with the United States. So I don't think such thing will affect the historical and solid relation with the United States.
Yes, sir. So you purchased Turkish armored personnel vehicles, and I believe that purchase is basically the acquisition is completed now.
Turkey is a partner. First of all, Turkey is a NATO member.
Yes, sir.
So you depend on Turkey very much, and Turkey is our partner. And actually, we have a partnership on the facilities who we have purchased from them the vehicle. So we are partners, and we have share on it. what's our share? 50%. So imagine that you have a share in a company, and you go, you let Ford, and you go and buy, GMC, and you are Ford partner. What will happen to you? So.
Yes, sir. Diversifying your portfolio is a great thing. You've bought the Typhoon. You're buying the Eagle, the Strike Eagle.
Cream of the sky.
Yes, sir.
Eagle.
Yes, sir. Yes. And then you've got the Raphael coming in. So completely understand that. And quite frankly, from a U.S. perspective, we'd like nothing more than you to buy that S-400, just so we get to, get up to it. You know what I'm saying? Just look at it from a not too far away distance. Might be pretty interesting.
I think having all this platform will give Qatar the security of their airspace which they needed.
Yes, sir.
And at the same time, as I told you, Qatar is not a war seeker. We've been known for the past 100 years of, in fact, sheltering people who live in fear. But to secure our air, to secure our land, to secure our sea, I think this is an element of stability.
Yes, sir, it absolutely is. In your 2040 plan, it appears it incorporates many countries throughout the world. Water will be a very strategic resource in the future. What are your plans going forward to ensure you have diversified sources of water for your economy?
Yeah, absolutely. This is very important, especially knowing that all our neighbors now are building nuclear power plants for desalination and so around the only locked sea which we have. But rest assured that this is something which I did not ignore, nor the government of Qatar ignore. And we have our strategic plan. We are implementing it. And as we did when they ambushed us and embargoed us in the middle of night, and we wake up thinking that we will not have food or medicine to our children, and we did provide all this in less than 24 hours, rest assured you will get the water.
Yes, sir.
So we are planning. We are planning.
How do you see the role of the United States in the region? And what can Qatar do to help the United States in that role?
In a region in which perspective? The narrow perspective or the region as a whole?
I think it's on the whole, regional stability.
Yes. The region as a whole, I believe the United States has to do more in the Iranian issue. I think they have to push for a serious dialogue, keep the dialogue going, because God forbid anything happen other than solving the standing issue in different way, other than a deep dialogue, it will be a catastrophe in the region. This is at the wider picture. At the smaller picture, I believe the only one who can solve the GCC issue is President Trump. And I think he can solve it in a phone call. I can tell you that. And this is why we always urge, the White House presented by President Trump, that he should invite everyone for the table, and again to solve all this issue over the table for one reason. Nobody's benefiting from what's happening in the GCC but the terrorist group. What's going on in the GCC is disturbing all the operation. I can tell you, I am there. I look after Al-Udeid. I look after all this operation. And I know how this chaos is disturbing the combating of terrorism. Yemen is another issue. We should have a solution to Yemen. Syria is another issue. I think United States, you are the global power, and so you are a global reach. And it is not me who decided that you have become a global power, global reach. So you have to play the global reach thing with the global power.
Yes, sir. Well, we've only got a couple of minutes left, and I've got one or two questions here to pelt you with, and then we'll be on our way. You mentioned Qatar's tense relations with its neighbors. How will your nation move to collaborate with key members of potential Middle Eastern coalition to fight ISIS?
As I told you, from the beginning of the GCC crisis, we've been calling for a dialogue. We are open, we can discuss anything. The only thing which we don't accept is, imposing condition on us or precondition, or trying to tamper with the sovereignty. We're very, tough people, so we don't accept any precondition on us. But at the same time, very open to discuss any issue which they think worries them. This is one. Two, as far as there is a dispute on that region, you cannot fight terrorism the way it should be, because this needs an exchange of information. This needs, synergy in utilizing your assets, and this is not happening. This is the only crisis I knew about in the whole time of a human being, that a crisis has no back door or dialogue. During the Cold War, there will always be a back door to discuss with your counterpart and at least have someone smoothen things down. The things which happen in 5th of June until now is strange. You will never find this model at all, where all line of communication is broken and cut. So I think it will not help in our ultimate goal, which is fighting ISIS or ISIS-Co.
It's interesting that you bring up the back door for negotiations. The Bush administration, Bush the younger administration, if I'm not mistaken, they asked you to establish that door for the United States with Hamas.
So many doors, not one door.
And that was fascinating that remained open for so long. Well, I've got a very nice remark here. It's the first one on the top of the card. It says, "Thank you for coming, Excellency."
Thank you very much.
And if I did not extend my gratitude, let me do that now. Thank you for coming. What adjustments, if any, would your nation like to see with the Iran deal?
With the Iran deal? As I told you, I think with Iran, there should be always a dialogue to solve this. A deal has been done. The only thing is, you have to talk seriously about implementing this deal, supervising the implementation, and only then you can change things if there is things which did not being covered on that deal. Other than that, it's not a pleasant picture.
Sure. Well, that's all the questions that we have for you from the audience. But is there anything that you would like to say in closing, sir?
More than this, the questions?
Yes, sir.
That's okay. No, I wanted to thank you, JV, for being here. This is the first time I been interviewed away from politics and diplomacy. You talk to me about things which I really love, military-to-military relations. I wanted to thank you and thank the audience taking their time and come and to listen to us.
Excellency, I will say that this has been a great honor and a privilege for the Heritage Foundation and myself. And ladies and gentlemen, would you join me in giving him a round of applause?